All the insects slowly began to advance towards the Taixu steel. Hong Yao started to observe them, and she couldn't help but wonder if Zhang had released the 9 miasma wing. He had released all the insects to envelop the Taixu steel. It was so mysterious that even the invincible dreamer had used it for enlightenment. The insects, who were very hungry, in a blink of an eye devoured the Taixu steel, leaving no trace. Upon realizing this, Gukaishin was shocked. Zhang had absorbed the Taixu steel by himself, something he could not understand. While Zhang was standing at the top of the Taixu temple, Zhang Wushuang ascended several steps and began to stare at him silently. With a look full of hatred, he accepted defeat this time, but swore to give his best when they competed in the ranking of prodigies of the Great Shi. Instead of continuing to ascend, Wushuang turned around and started to descend. Bai Feng and Tang Ying looked up, and upon witnessing that even Zhang Wushuang had given up, he thought it was better to withdraw. According to her, this was no longer worth it, since climbing up here had almost cost them their lives, and advancing further would harm their essence. Realizing that Zhang had reached the Taixu temple, Mu Hankyu and Lu Sandao began to smile and could not help but feel happy. According to them, the master was incredible, and fortunately they too had completed their mission. A ranking window of the system appeared in the sky. The first on the list was Zhang Chen with 8 stages, the second was Zhang Wushuang with 623 stages, the third was Bai Feng with 609 stages, fifth was Tang Ying with 600 stages, sixth were Lei Zi and Lu Bijai with 304 stages, and the last were Lu Sandao and Mu Hankyu with 300 stages. Gu Kaishin, who had his arms crossed, began to smile, since without Zhang Chen, the others would not have been able to get this far. Hong Yao started looking at Zhang with a tender look. For her, he was incredible, and this new generation was much stronger than they were back then. Several minutes passed and Zhang stood still doing nothing. And upon realizing this, Hong Yao became somewhat confused and with a surprised look began to wonder why he continued standing there in a trance when everyone else had already come down. Zhang was in his subconscious. The Taixu steel was teleported to the insect nest, and Little Nine hugged it, and her level rose from 22 to 25, obtaining several thousand devouring value. When she had said that she wanted to eat the steel, she meant to take it back to the insect nest. Now she was enjoying it and even had leveled up several times. While she was hugging the Taixu steel like a baby, Zhang, who was on the ground, put his hands on his hips, started observing her, and couldn't help but start smiling, since the devouring values of the insects had also increased drastically. At this rate, they were going to be able to breed a third generation soon. He didn't know if the steel and 9 miasma wings were connected in some way. The statistics window of the Taixu steel appeared. It was originally an abyssal anchor stone. Located at the bottom of the abyss, it was a compact artifact and one of the fundamental essences of the abyss. The Taixu steel came from the abyss, and given that Little Nine was the ruler of the abyss, it was not surprising that she wanted the steel more than anyone. Zhang emerged from the insect nest and returned to reality, and at that moment, in the place where the Taixu steel had been, poisonous mists began to appear. Upon noticing this, Zhang went on alert and became confused at the same time. While his body was surrounded by poisonous mists, he was transported to another place. He had been recognized as the master of the Taixu realm. No matter where he found himself, with a single thought, he could teleport back to the Taixu realm in any moment. No one except the master could open the doors of the Taixu hall. Zhang was somewhat surprised and realized that the Taixu steel was the key to the Taixu realm. Only he could teleport here at any time, and no one else could open it. He could use the Taixu hall as his final trump card. He left the realm, jumped, and decided that it was better to leave now. There were too many eyes watching right now. He wanted to avoid entering the hall for now to check it later. While he was in the air, Hong Yao and Gu Kaishin appeared and took him by both arms. He asked Zhang to come with him for a moment. They began to fly high and disappeared from sight. All the participants of the camp started to look at the sky and thought that the celestial king of the sword had captured Zhang, thinking that it must be related to the Taixu steel. Some thought that this was happening to him for being too arrogant. Not far from the area there were snow-capped mountains. They went to another remote area. Gu Kashin began to stare at him. One of the 3 invincible figures of Great Shia. The dreamer, only he could observe the Taeksu steel in search of enlightenment. He wanted to know how Zhang had used the 9 miasma wings to absorb the Taeksu steel. With a serious look, Jiang stayed thinking in silence, and upon seeing that Gu Kaishan knew about the 9 miasma wings, he thought that he had summoned him to this place to kill him. With a cheerful look, Gu Kaishan asked him if he really thought he would be able to turn the 9 miasma wings into a poisonous mist and deceive everyone. Hong Yao, who was next to him, closed her eyes and started laughing since Zhang's expression was very cute. Zhang calmed down as judging by their appearance. They did not want to kill him. He decided it was better to tell the truth. With a serious look, he revealed that the 9 miasma wings and the Taeksu steel came from the abyss, sharing the same origin. Or rather that the Taeksu steel originally belonged to the 9 miasma wings. Far from becoming alarmed, Gu Kaishan remained calm and told him that he should be aware of the great Shia's stance on Calamity. Now he had two options. He could stay in the Yunmeng swamp forever and live as an exile clinging to his life, or he could return with him and fight for his survival. Millions would want him dead, even those at the general or invincible level. Upon hearing this, Zhang couldn't help but panic. He swallowed hard and was astonished since it wasn't just his imagination before. The old master had come to the Yunmeng swamp only to give him an exit. He didn't know why they hadn't met before. While he was lost in his thoughts, Hong Yao approached him. She started to point at him her finger, and with a serious look caught his attention, asking what he was thinking about and reminding him that the master had asked him a question. Upon hearing her voice, he came out of his trance. With a confident look, he decided to return, although he carried a calamity with him. He had only killed bad people and did not believe he had done anything wrong. Since his conscience was clear, there was no reason to flee. Hong Yao began to look at him and she started to smile upon seeing his determination. Gu Kaishan, who had his arms crossed, began to laugh heartily. He expected nothing less from his disciple. Even though he did not want to admit it, even Jiagang was not as good as him back then. Jiang was somewhat confused since he did not know what Uncle Jiagang had to do with this. She closed her eyes, rested her fist on his shoulder, and asked him to remember that she was his older sister and Uncle Jiagang was the second older brother. She explained that back then, Jiagang had almost died at the hands of when he had assaulted the Zhao family to steal Aunt Tang. The master had told him to hold his position, but he did not want to drag the master in, and as a consequence, in the end, he was exiled to Chujiang City. Jiang realized that Uncle Jiagang also held a grudge against the Zhao family. Gu Kaishan turned his back on them and mentioned that old grudges no longer mattered, whether they were invincible or generals. As long as Jiang's will was firm, they as master and disciple would face them together. When they returned to Jiangnan, his sword would open a path for Jiang. These words were more than enough to make Jiang excited. While he had his arms crossed, Jiang knelt before him asking him to accept the reverence of his disciple. At the same time in the city, the sun rose and in a skyscraper, a meeting among generals took place. The supreme commander of the war zone of Jiangnan, named Duan Xinghai, intertwined his hands, and with a calm look mentioned that since all 12 titled kings of Jiangnan had gathered except Gu Kaishan, and he decided to get straight to the point. Everyone started to pay attention, and he explained that based on their research, the poisonous mist of Jiang Chen was actually the 9 miasma wings. According to the Great Zia's taboo ordinance, anyone who awakened a type of calamity or controlled a taboo object must be killed mercilessly. Asking for others' opinions on this, Mu Henkyu's grandfather, a red-haired man named Mu Henian, raised his hand and with a smile said that although the 9 miasma wings had caused great catastrophe in past eras, it was almost impossible for it to grow to that scale in the present. He believed that as long as Jiang Chen was under proper supervision, it shouldn't be a big problem, and in the worst case they could simply take the 9 miasma wings and destroy it. There was no need to kill Jiang. Tang Jing's father, a man named Tang Wenquan, raised his hand and he agreed with his assessment since the Great Zia's taboo ordinance had been issued 500 years ago. Back then, Great Zia was incredibly weak, but today, Great Zia was strong and they could negotiate taboo matters more flexibly. Two of the generals started to talk among themselves to see who had been connected with Jiang Chen from the beginning. They had heard that Mu Henian's granddaughter had gotten quite close to Zhang in the prodigy camp. Zhang Chen belonged to Jiegang, and Tang Wenquan's daughter, Tang Jin, was also getting involved with Jiegang. Upon hearing this, Tang Wenquan became furious, and at that moment, the door of the room shattered into pieces, creating a large curtain of smoke, leaving everyone in shock. The person who had destroyed the door was none other than old Zhao Yuanquan from the Zhao family, who wanted to kill Zhang at all costs. While his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he began to point the sword at them, and with a look full of hatred, he told them that anyone who dared to speak for Zhang Chen must first be prepared to taste his. Upon seeing General Zhao, Duan panicked and apologized to Gu Kaishan. If it weren't for General Zhao intervening, perhaps he could have helped negotiate this, but now he was alone. He hoped that he would not blindly protect Zhang and sink as well. After a few hours, Dan, Jiegang, and the others arrived at the area where the camp was going to land, and he explained that General Zhao had deployed the Celestial Punishment Squadron. They were all hidden in the nearby. According to Jiegang, this was a grand scenario, and he also realized that Zhang Chen and the others had to return soon. With an angry look, he grabbed the sword's hilt. If a fight broke out, he and Tang Jing were going to draw their swords. The old grudges and the new ones were going to be resolved together. He told Don Feng that the night watch of Kujiang was now in his hands. Duan panicked and began shaking his hands. When he had intervened in the wedding, Duan had been with him, and now he was willing to cause trouble again. Yingxiak, who had her eyes closed, put a hand on her waist and told them not to look at her, asking if they needed a healer. Feng, who was next to her, asked her to get lost since he enjoyed a good brawl, and there was no way he would miss this. With a smile, Tang Jing asked old Giant to be so formal since they were family. She started to point at the sky and saw a bright light, wondering if that was not Zhang Chen and the others in the distance. Not far away on a mountain was old Zhao's squadron, who located their target. He began to point towards the sky with his finger, and gave the order to the Heavenly Punishment Squad to prepare, and also asked the Divine Crossbows to get ready to shoot. Upon hearing his order, the men took out their crossbows and began aiming at the sky. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,